It has to do with the business of seeing. It's the art of seeing something. Looking at the interrelationship between color without line and the inner aspect of two- or three-dimensional space, whatever the case may be. And, of course, the light that reveals the color, that it can be articulated in space. Barnes's approach was to use the real paintings. And we had Renoirs. I would carry a Renoir around, pass it on. Let's have that Cézanne. And we used original works only when we were students at the Barnes. And it was an incredible collection. It's been panned by people in Canada not being up to scratch. Well, they only saw part of it at the AGO. And so it's what people have seen directly and what they hear via the grapevine. And those are two facets that are not very clear in Canadian art. There's a lot of people who criticized Emma Lake. Where did they get it from? And you know that whole problem of telling stories, and by the time it gets around the circle, it's a totally different picture. Greenberg didn't have to tell us what to paint. People should talk to Dorothy Parahudoff, for example, who was there. And Greenberg encouraged her with her landscape painting. And she didn't change her, didn't tell her what to paint. But he was one who had a very large and experienced life looking at art and looking at painting. There isn't a painting he hadn't looked at practically. He was very knowledgeable. So he was a critic. It was the best thing that ever happened to the Canadian art, was to open the doors to international concepts and ideas and biases, not just the National Gallery bias or the AGO bias. Bring in people from other places. That's why I wanted these people in. And of course, I was on a kick with Noland and Liskey and Clem Greenberg and that whole post-painterly group. And that didn't sit well, probably because Greenberg included Bush, Lougheed, and Mackay in the post-painterly show that traveled from Los Angeles to Toronto and so on. And so that's sort of a tricky little bit of thing that happened that didn't sit well. But this whole idea of, like Curnow in London was anti-American, and this whole idea of closing the borders. I studied in Philadelphia, and my God, I have so much to be thankful for. And I went to New York every second weekend. I saw all these wonderful paintings. That's what I tell students who are undergrads. I say, you want a master's? Go to the Eastern Atlantic seaboard from Boston to Washington. You'll find probably the biggest collection of real art in the Western world.